Hey everyone, so today I just saw a video on Korean street food garlic bread and I just had to make it, so I thought why not make it and make a video out of it. Um, apparently it's a very popular street food dish right now in Korea, and I'm not surprised to why it is because Koreans these days, they just really love cheese in any other food, so how can it not become popular? And me being a half Korean, I could totally understand that. I think anyone's all about that cheese life, right? So today I'm gonna be making Korean street food garlic bread, and I just started out with 2 tablespoons of butter because I'm gonna be making the garlic sauce for the bread. And I'm just gonna heat it up in the microwave right now for about 10 to 25 seconds until it completely melts, but of course we don't want it to burn, so keep an eye on it until it just kind of liquefies and gets to a good melting point. And here I am just waiting. Okay, but yeah, so apparently this is a very popular dish right now. A lot of booths are having long lines and people want to buy it, so I'm excited to try it. I haven't tried it yet. Alright, now I'm going to be adding about 3 tablespoons of minced raw garlic. We don't want to cook the garlic because it's going to cook in the oven, and if we cook it now it might burn the oven, so definitely want it to be raw when you're putting it in this butter sauce. Alright, and now I'm just throwing in some oregano and basil, dry oregano and basil. It's about a teaspoon each. You don't want to put too much because it might overpower the garlic. And let's put a dash of salt. And again, I'm using really little salt because there'll be salt in the cheese that we're using later, so we don't want it to become too salty. So just make sure you mix everything until it's combined, and now we're going to move on to the cream cheese filling that goes inside the bread. And I'm using this just whole stick of cream cheese, which I believe is about 260 milligrams, which might be a whole cup. But honestly, it really depends how much cream cheese filling you want in your bread. This is 1 serving of bread, I'm not making more than 1. So at this point, you could really just eyeball it. And here I am struggling to open that package. But yeah, I've been to Korea a couple times already, about 3 times, and I'm all about the street food life. It's so good. So I was really disappointed I was never able to try this garlic bread. I think it's something that just came out, or just something I never came across of. So again, yeah, about a cup of cream cheese here, and it's kind of really cold. It's not room temperature. If you have room temperature cream cheese, then that's best. But I didn't really prepare for this, so what I'm gonna do is just gonna pop it in the microwave for about maybe a good 30 to 50 seconds until it just melts. We don't want it to burn again, or not burn again, but we just don't want it to burn. So and what I like to do, I like to add about a teaspoon of lemon juice. If you don't have a lemon on hand, maybe you can add a teaspoon of sour cream, or even a half a teaspoon of vinegar. It kind of just brings the cream cheese flavor out. It's something I like to do. So I just throwing a little splash of that into the cream cheese before I pop. Okay, so while that's melting, I'm going to talk about our next ingredient, which is going to be sugar. And I think this is what makes it the Korean style type of garlic bread, because Korean people tend to putting sugar in their cheese, which I agree with it. I think it's great. So I'm using about a teaspoon of stevia. If you're gonna be using regular cane sugar, then I would maybe suggest about a tablespoon. But if you're gonna be using some sort of sweetener substitute, then I'll go for a teaspoon of it, since those tend to be a little bit more sweeter. So you're just gonna mix all that together and make sure everything's incorporated, and even taste test it to see if you're happy with the sweetness level or if it's weird to you. But I really ask you to embrace it. It's a really great combination to have some sort of sweetener with cheese. At least I think so. Yeah. So as you can see, the cheese is very easy to stir now. It's becoming more creamy texture, almost like a thick pudding, and that's what we want because we're going to be stuffing this into the bread later on. So I just taste tested it, and I love the sweetness level and even the acidic level with the lemon in it. I think it's perfect for my taste. So maybe if you're more sensitive to those certain ingredients, then I would suggest going for less and kind of build it up so you can kind of build up to the flavor that you're going for. But this one's perfect for me. So now we got our bread. This is just a regular French roll bread that I got from the grocery store, and it's kind of a nice size. It's the size of my hand. So I'm only going to be making one today because it's kind of a big size piece of bread. And if you can get a serrated knife, that'd be best to cut. We're going to score this bread 5 times in a star shape. And using a serrated knife is super important because when you're cutting bread or any like pastries, using a chef knife is not going to really work. And also, might I add, make sure your serrated knife is sharp and not dull like mine's, because then this is what happens, as you can see later on. It kind of pushes the bread down and you're kind of losing all the fluffiness of that bread. So it's really important to have a nice serrated knife when you're dealing with bread in general. But I'm gonna go try to look for a different knife. I'm really unhappy that it's squishing my bread. So hopefully this knife will be better. Here's another serrated knife. It's not, see what I mean? It just, a sharp serrated knife is most important, or else you end up with that. But it's okay. Luckily for me, my bread is very fresh, so it maintained its bounciness, if you will. Okay, so I'm continuing to cut down to the bread, making sure I'm not cutting all the way through the bread, but enough that it kind of gives it some sections that you can work with, because we're gonna be filling the cream cheese in these sections. It's gonna be really good when it's finished. So I'm gonna fill this bread with usually traditionally you use a piping bag, but I'm actually using a Ziploc bag, which most people do too as well. But the trick is that when you're filling these pastry bags or Ziploc bags, you want to use a cup, because when you have a cup, you can kind of you have more control over how you're filling the piping bag. So I'll show you in just a second. As you can tell, I kind of forgot. I started to put in the cream cheese into the Ziploc bag, but then I saved it. I got a cup. I remembered. So what you do, you'll put the corner of the Ziploc bag into the cup, and then once you have a nice fit, you'll pull the top layer or the top portion of the Ziploc bag over the cup. And now you kind of can see there's more control when pouring the cream cheese into the Ziploc bag. So just gonna keep filling it as much as I can, and then the rest of the leftovers, I'm gonna use it for my bagel tomorrow morning. I love cream cheese. So what I'm doing here now is actually massaging the cream cheese to make sure there's no air bubbles or air gaps, because when you start piping, there's air gaps in the piping bag. It's literally gonna splat everywhere. And I don't know about you, if you're okay with that, then that's cool, but I don't want that to happen. So as you can see, I kind of massaged everything to the corner, and once you make sure there's no more air, you can get a kitchen scissors or kitchen shears and then just cut the tip of the Ziploc bag. And what I'm doing here is I'm just piping about 1 to 2 layers of the cream cheese filling in each section of the bread. And the reason why I leave space is because I want there to be enough space for the bread to absorb that garlic mixture later. So I'm just continuing to fill each layer. This part's really fun. I feel like a pastry chef right now. So each section has 2 layers, and in the middle I just kind of fill it until it gets to the top like that, if you can see. And with a pie dish or any shallow baking pan, I foiled it for easy cleanup, and then you just start pouring your garlic mixture on top of your bread. I make sure that the garlic mixture gets into every crevice and section of that bread because I want this bread to absorb it. So I make sure every part of the top is being coated as well. And at this point, if you want to get more creative, you can add more ingredients like slices of ham or something like that. This is just a very basic approach to this recipe, but I think this would be so good with some ham or even like some mushrooms inside. But I'm just keeping it simple today since it's the first time I'm actually making it. But I think definitely next time I'm gonna add a little extra something. And I garnish it with a little bit more herbs just for why not. And so this is ready to pretty much be popped into your preheated oven. I'm also adding some Parmesan cheese on top because who doesn't love Parmesan cheese on top of garlic bread? It's kind of a staple. It's kind of really important to do that, right? So really the only thing that makes this Korean style street food is the sweet cream cheese. Other than that, it's a very traditional garlic bread. And then I just put a dollop of that cream cheese filling on top to get that nice creme brulee effect later once it comes out of the oven. Anyways, it's ready to go in, as I was gonna say, into a 450 preheated oven for about 10 to 15 minutes until everything is crispy and golden brown. And there's our masterpiece. So we just do the waiting game now. Okay, so after waiting about 10 to 15 minutes, it should look something like this. It looks so good, I'm so ready to eat it. But you want to let this sit for at least 10 minutes because it's really hot. And the last thing you want, or that anyone ever wants before you eat, is to burn your tongue. So just let it cool down for a bit. 8 to 10 minutes, and then you can just start serving it. Okay, so once it's cooled down completely, you can eat it. You can pour on some of that parsley and basil on top just to like give it a nice green look if you want. I just did it for the sake of doing it. I'm ready to eat, and I wish you can hear it, but the bread's so crunchy right now. And I don't even know how to tackle this because I never even had this before. So, but I'm just gonna forget about using knife and fork because garlic bread should be eaten with your hands. So I'm just gonna put that down. I'm just gonna eat it the way it should be eaten. And look at that, that looks so good. Oh my gosh, my mouth is watering. You can see that the garlic is completely cooked and the cream cheese has melted inside. The Parmesan cheese is all melted on top, but the bread is still fluffy in the middle while it's still crisp on the outside. And literally, if you haven't tried this before, it's such a great flavor. The first thing you get initially is that nice crispy bread, but of course you get the nice cooked garlic, and then you have that nice sweet cream cheese that kind of just marries all that sweet and savory together. It's just amazing. It's crazy, but you can't go wrong. It's literally garlic bread with some sweet cream cheese. But this is a food in Korea, a street food, and I can see why it's so popular, especially if they make it into smaller bite-sized pieces. I could really see why this is becoming a really popular thing to eat. But I feel like I've tried some of it, and I hope I inspired you to give it a try. If you're not someone who's into sweet and savory stuff, when putting a sweetener in your cream cheese sounds a little bit weird, definitely just give it a try. I really felt that way too when I first heard about things like that, but it's just something that I grew to really love. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, let me know and maybe I'll make some more in the future.